unfortunately, a lot of young guys come in at like 18, 19, and they do this, and they can do it for hours and hours without eating, but in the long run, it will break you down, and halfway through the season, you will get injuries, because when you're not actually putting good food into your diet throughout the day, it's more about your mind not getting the nourishment, and that's when mistakes and injuries happen.
So welcome back to the Sina Good Health Podcast. Today I've got Mike Smith with me. He's the owner of Dueling Garden Smiths, and he's also a fitness guy. So today we're going to talk about balancing fitness with having an active job, because that's pretty demanding. So Mike, you want to start off just kind of talking about your fitness journey?
Yeah, I started by playing baseball when I was about 12. I played for 10 years, and through that time I was lifting weights, not well, but while you're playing sports, it's important to think you're working out. So I just lifted heavy weights and did bench press, and that's pretty much all I did as far as my baseball career. Didn't really know what I was doing, but once I got into high school, I played football, and they actually had a pretty serious workout regimen where you did squats and stretching and lunges and just pretty much the full body workout. And so that's where I learned a majority of my techniques, which I'm finding now is actually, if I were to continue to do that, work out like I did in high school, I would probably damage my body more than help it. So as I've gotten older, my body has been breaking down a little more, so I'm trying to do more active recovery, better nutrition, and a lot more stretching. So that's kind of where I'm at as of right now.
Yeah, and that seems to be a pretty common pattern I see with guys just doing like the all-out high school, 3 hours in the gym with sports and whatever, and then you hit a point where that's just not working anymore, and you need to focus more on that recovery. So, you said you've been doing landscaping in some form or another for like 5 years. Like, have you always had the more active jobs?
Yeah, back in high school, I was mowing lawns, and I did a lot of just a bunch of different jobs, mostly in the food industry, but the older I got, I was doing like paper delivery, where I would actually load big bundles of papers into a truck, and then I would drop them off, so it was really physically demanding. And then after high school, I worked in a few greenhouses. Actually worked at a farm for a little bit, for about a year. That was also physically demanding. So overall, I've had a lot of physically demanding jobs. I think every time I get into a lull with my fitness, I end up in like a food service job, which I think gives me recovery that I wouldn't normally get. But now I think I'm in it for the long haul, because I know my body a little better, and so I can continue and be consistent.
Yeah. So how, like, what is a day of eating, like, throughout, as you're doing the physical labor, like, what does the food consumption look like?
Well, before it was terrible. It was like a seafood diet. Just grab anything you can get and eat it. But I had a lot of, I would have a lot of energy to start the morning, because I had so many carbs, a lot of sugars, stuff like that. So I had a jolt of energy in the morning, and then halfway through my day, I'd just be just I wouldn't be able to get through my day. I'd be lazy. That's when the injuries would often happen because I wasn't using good technique and things like that because my brain wasn't in it. So now I start my day with a lot of protein. I try to get good fats, good carbs. It's important to get the good carbs, not just sugar and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like potatoes and rice and things like that. I recently started eating one avocado every day. I've noticed a big jump in energy since I've done that, so hopefully I can continue with that. And I bring a protein shake. Halfway through my day, I'll drink a protein shake. So I'm pretty much re-upping on my fats and carbs and protein about halfway through the day. The biggest thing about my food intake per day is I'll take breaks probably every 2 hours and just re-energize with some food, but mostly the relaxation is a big thing because if you're just constantly moving, then you don't realize that you're tired because you're full of adrenaline.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting to me, like, just, I remember noticing in myself just that I was, like, starving when I was younger, like in elementary and junior high and high school. It's eating cereal in the morning, and then it's like, it's only gonna keep you satisfied for so long, and then it's like, it wasn't until like college when I started having eggs for breakfast, and it's like, oh, that actually is a lot more satiating.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a while I was doing the Life Touch photography job, and my parents thought it was weird that I was eating like meatballs and broccoli, or just like you mentioned, like potatoes or whatever, like eating non-breakfast foods for breakfast. But it's like, you need that and Life Touch isn't, you're on your feet because you're moving the camera around and stuff, so it's like, it's not quite landscaping, but it's still more physical than just sitting at a desk.
Right.
So it's just really interesting to think about, like, is that going to change, like, cereal being the standard breakfast, but
yeah, I hope not. I hope people start realizing that there's more to eating than just filling your stomach.
Right. So what kind of foods do you find beneficial or not beneficial? You started to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, high protein, pretty much eggs, and I eat a lot of lunch meat throughout the day. That's a big one. Like I said, I'll bring an avocado to work. That's really easy and to just cut open and just eat with a spoon. A lot of times I'll bring like nuts, and because that's good on fat also, as far as protein and fats go. And then protein bars. A lot of times there's actually more carbs in protein bars than there is protein, so it helps in both aspects. But really just getting more calories in than what you're putting out is a huge thing in the landscape industry. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of young guys come in at like 18, 19, and they do this, and they can do it for hours and hours without eating, but in the long run, it will break you down, and halfway through the season, you will get injuries, because when you're not actually putting good food into your diet throughout the day, it's more about your mind not getting the nourishment, and that's when mistakes and injuries happen.
For sure. Yeah. So one challenge that might be interesting to talk about is like, so you don't, I'm assuming you don't have access to like a refrigerator or something, so it's like, how do you factor that in for like you can't bring food and like either warm it up or keep it cold or whatever?
Yeah, it can be tough. I do my best to stay away from preservatives, but a lot of I bring a cooler to work, so it's not that big. It can be kind of a pain to drag it around, but I put about 2,500 calories into my lunchbox, so usually that's enough because I'll get at least 500 calories in the morning, and then throughout the day I'll eat about 2,000 to 2,500 calories, and then when I get home from my job, I'll try to put in about just under 1,000 calories. So yeah, I think the start of the day and the end of the day is more important than what I bring to work.
Right.
Yeah, the stuff that I bring to work, it's just enough to get me by throughout the day when it's like 80, 90 degrees out.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is like temperature, like because you're outside and I mean we're in Minnesota, but you can still get like up 90, 100 degrees. So how does temperature play into that?
Yeah, it's important to take your breaks when it's that hot. I mean, I'll go through a day and I'm a foreman, so I'll call out water break every hour. So it's important to get a decent amount of water every hour. That's another thing. Not enough water will it'll wear you down mentally more than it will physically sometimes. A lot of guys will push through. They won't even realize that they're dehydrated until it's too late. Because once again, it's the adrenaline that's usually pushing you through landscaping. So yeah, that's just focus on water. Sometimes there's certain foods that will actually dehydrate you. I'll actually bring things that are a little bit salty because they'll have electrolytes. I think that's a really good idea during hot times in the summer. So that's usually what I focus on.
Sure. So you mentioned a little bit, like, you want to talk more about, is there an ego problem with like pushing through, or you're weak if you need water?
Yeah, that is a huge thing in the industry. It's full of tough guys. I get crap all the time for telling people I'm not pushing myself. I'm taking care of myself. A lot of people will lift more than they're capable of. It's kind of a frustrating industry, but you just have to take care of yourself, and that's really all you can do. You can tell people that it's important to take care of your body and your muscles and stretch and things like that, but a lot of times people will just focus on their ego more than technique and stuff like that. So yeah, I constantly tell people to lift with your legs, take water breaks, and you still can't get people to do it, but yeah, I still try. I guess eventually it'll kick in if you keep knocking on the door long enough.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about like what kind of injuries do you see? Like you started to touch on this.
Oh, back injuries are by far the most prominent. A lot of people will not use their legs. They'll bend it at the waist when they pick things up, and that's the easiest way to actually tweak something in your back, your sciatic nerve. When you pick up things like that, that's when you get that little twinge. But yeah, a lot of times you'll get cramps from the really hot days in your legs from constantly running wheelbarrows up and down hills and things like that. Yeah, just a lot with the knees. You're constantly in the dirt. It's nice to be in the dirt rather than in the rocks. Knee pads are pretty important, or else you'll be constantly gouging the tissue in your knees, and eventually you feel that by the end of the year, especially when it gets cold, you'll start feeling it pretty bad.
Yeah, like it was actually in like, I think I'll say it was like a military survival book or something that talked about like your knees are not actually made for like weight bearing or like for crawling.
Yeah.
So, because they're like just, well, try crawling like half a mile and see how you feel. Like,
Yeah.
on your knees, but
Yeah, it takes a toll after a while.
yeah, because like I might be talking out of my misremembering whatever, but like I thought there's something with like babies crawling on their knees, but then like something physiologically changes in the knees, and then as you get older and whatever, when you, because they need to just to build that coordination, but
Right.
that's a whole other worm tunnel.
Yeah.
So you have a significant other who's also into fitness. So how has that affected you with like workout and diet and support?
She is probably the best thing for my ego. Because in my mind I can do just about anything. I can push through physically through anything that I want to. She's been huge on my diet. I would still be eating just pizza and pasta and just all the fatty foods, not really paying attention to what she brought up to me was what's called a macro split, and it it pretty much just separates your fats and your carbs and your proteins, and so they're evenly split. You actually need more carbs throughout the day than what you use in fats. You probably need 50% carbs, 20 to 25 on your fats, and 20 to 25 on your protein, just so it's evenly dispersed throughout your body, because that's how your body works. But she definitely checks me mentally a lot with me overworking out. Sometimes I would just go to the gym just because it was part of the routine, and she's harped on me about recovery and sleep and things like that, and that's things I never really thought about, because you always hear the best athletes are the ones that aren't sleeping and they're training while everybody else is sleeping. So yeah, she's definitely helped me to actually take care of myself rather than just be the tough guy and push through things.
Yeah, I got the same thing from my wife. It's just telling me like, as much as you want to be, you're not a superhero. But it's true, because it's good, and it's good to have that self-compassion. And you're right, like our pop culture kind of focuses on those, the 1% of people that can somehow function or claim they can function on 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And they're at the gym at 2 a.m. So it's just not realistic for most of us. And then the other thing that frustrates me is like you're saying, like, your body needs carbs, and that's right, because it's like keto is pretty popular right now in mainstream media and whatever, and it's like people don't understand, like, you need carbs for energy, especially if you're doing something like what your line of work. So.
I think there's probably a right workout or right like nutrition for each lifestyle, but keto would not work for what I'm doing. I need the carbs,
right?
Because I burn calories like nobody's business with what I do. Probably 4,000 calories a day which is unheard of. I think it's more of my body type than anything.
Right.
But you have to replenish the body somehow or another.
Yeah. Well, and I am reading a book about how heat, like temperature, affects weight loss and metabolism and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't gotten very far, so can't really talk on that yet. So injuries. So do you want to talk more about like what do you do for recovery to make sure you can? Because you said you're in this work for the long haul, so it's like how do you recover to keep going?
Sleep is huge. I try to get at least 7 hours a night, which can be difficult during the longer days of the year, because sometimes I'll be up at 5, and then I won't get home until 7, and then I still have to eat and shower and do things like that. But I try to focus a lot on my sleep patterns, because that is definitely a huge thing on recovery. But when I get home, at least during the weekends, I'll try to stretch out. I'll try to use like a Theragun type on my muscles. Roll on a foam roller. Just do anything to kind of move that lactic acid out of my legs, because I use my legs a lot. That's probably my biggest asset right now. But then the off season is kind of you have to be really methodical with your workouts throughout the year. So during the winter time, when I'm not doing as much, I'll focus more on like power and like power fitness and not so much cardio, because I usually lose a lot of weight throughout the year, so I try to push cardio to the side until just a month before the season starts. So in the month before the season starts, I'll do cardio and more mobility, stretching, stuff like that. But yeah, I'll focus on mobility all year long, because that's gonna be the biggest thing for my longevity.
Yeah.
Is having good mobility, because that's how a lot of injuries happen. Is your body's not used to stretching like that. So if I can get my groin and my knees and all the important tendons stretching out like they should, then I think I can continue on for another 10, 15 years doing this kind of work.
Right. Yeah, and that's a pet peeve of mine is like I hear like on the radio or just people talking or whatever, it's just, I was just bending over to tie my shoes and I threw my back out, and it's like, there's so much more behind that. You didn't just one day happen to throw your back out, but that's...
Yeah, I have a guy who I've worked with for the last 3 years, and I always preached to him that you have to be healthy, and he's like, well, I quit drinking, so I took up eating, and he doesn't stretch or anything, and I always say, hey, I ran a mile this morning, and he just says, yeah, well, I didn't, so my knees feel fine. But he back in his heyday, he was probably about 6'2" and maybe like 190 pounds, and that was while he was drinking. So all of a sudden he quit drinking and started eating, and now he's that height, but 200 pounds more. So he's not as useful as he once was. I mean, he's brilliant, but he can't do the work anymore, and I don't want to be that person.
Right. So so the last question will be like, so you said you're a foreman, but then you also started your own business. So how do you maintain energy and sanity on top of all that work?
That's gonna be the tough thing. I hopefully, if I can not overdo the start of my business. As long as I can only add maybe like 20 hours or something to my week, I think it's possible. I just have to take time. I want to go to the gym for at least 45 minutes every day and stretch out, kind of warm up, just so my body's ready for the day. I think that'll help me a lot. But I also plan on taking an entire week off in the middle of the season. So that will help my body kind of heal a little bit before I do the final push at the end of the year. So I think that's a good way to do it, where I just kind of have 2 long spurts, rest, and then do it again for the rest of the year. So, but the nice thing about my industry is you can't do it during the wintertime. So that's going to be a great time to recover. So I think I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it sounds like during the winter you kind of build up your baseline strength and power and everything, and then get the cardio back, and then you're always doing the mobility, so you're just able to keep performing at those higher and higher levels.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout the working season, like, keep focusing on the recovery so you're not getting those injuries, so that which takes you out potentially.
Yeah.
So if you're in or around Rochester, if you want to give your plug about Dueling Garden Smiths.
Oh yeah, Dueling Garden Smiths is a brand new company, but I've been doing this for a large portion of my life. It's a lawn care and garden services with a little bit of, I do a little bit of smaller landscaping jobs. So you can always go to our website at duelinggardensmiths.com and look us up. You can book services now, or you can just give us a call and I'll answer any questions you have.
All right, so check them out, and thanks for being on the show, Mike.
Thank you, Alex.
So tune in for the next one.